Have you ever stopped to think about how we got from, those clunky language lab headsets to learning a new language on a smartphone with people literally all over the world? It's pretty wild. Well, the journey of technology in language education is this fascinating story of shifting ideas, new tools, and different goals. So let's dive into this evolution and figure out what it all means for today's classroom. Here's the game plan. We're going to start with two big questions that really frame this whole conversation. Then we'll take a quick trip through the history of tech in language learning. After that, we'll explore a really helpful way to think about tech's role, see how it's completely changing the game for core skills, and then wrap up with how you can make smart, principled decisions for your own teaching. All right, first things first. Before we get into any of the gadgets or apps, we need to ground ourselves in two fundamental questions. Honestly, these are questions every educator should be asking whenever they think about bringing in new tech. So, way back in 2001, M. Raphael Salaberry laid out these two questions, and they are, believe it or not, more relevant today than ever. See, it's not about just using tech because it's new and shiny. The first question basically asks, what can this new thing actually do that helps someone learn a language better? What's its unique teaching superpower? And the second one, that's the million-dollar question, right? How do we make it a natural, effective part of what we do every day, and not just some gimmick we use once? These two questions are going to be our North Star for this whole explainer. Okay, so to really get a handle on where we are now, we've got to look at where we've been. The role that technology plays has changed so dramatically, right alongside our own understanding of how people actually learn languages. This timeline really paints a picture of how our teaching philosophies have shaped the tech we use in what's called CALL, or computer-assisted language learning. Back in the 60s and 70s, it was all about behaviorism. Think endless, repetitive grammar drills where the computer was basically a stimulus response machine. Then the 80s hit, and the focus shifted to communication. Tech started to let learners play with language in more meaningful ways. And then, from the 90s onward, with the internet exploding onto the scene, we entered what's called the integrative phase, where the goal is to use tech for real, authentic communication. But a scholar named Stephen Bax pointed out that this timeline isn't quite so clean. He said we should think about it more in terms of how the tech is being used. Is it being used in a restricted way, like an isolated grammar drill that a student does all alone in a corner? Or is it truly integrated, where students just naturally move between a class discussion to a collaborative online doc to a research task, using technology as just another part of the classroom ecosystem? And that idea perfectly sets up the ultimate goal, normalization. This is the magic moment. It's the point where we stop talking about using technology in the classroom and we just use it. It becomes invisible, as fundamental to learning as a whiteboard or a pen. The focus is completely off the tool and onto the learning that it makes possible. That's the dream, right? So, to help us get to that normalized state, it's super helpful to have a mental model for the different hats that technology can wear. There's a simple but really powerful framework that can guide our choices. This is what's known as the tutor-tutee tool metaphor. So, is the computer a tutor, drilling a student on verb conjugations over and over? Is it a tutee, where the student actually has to tell it what to do, which forces them to think logically? Or is it a tool, like a simple word processor that helps a student get an authentic task done? Now, here's the really interesting part. Most of the powerful, modern uses of tech fall squarely into that tool category. And this isn't just some academic theory. It's a practical filter. When you see a new app, you can ask yourself, is this just another drill-based tutor? Or is this a tool that empowers my students to create something real? And we can take that powerful tool idea and kick it up a notch with the concept of a mind tool. This is where a tool doesn't just help you do something, it helps you think through it. A word processor isn't just a fancy typewriter, right? It's a mind tool that supports the entire messy, wonderful process of drafting, revising, and organizing our thoughts. It's scaffolding the very process of thinking and creating. And that is the absolute heart of language learning. Okay, so we've got the history, we've got the theory. Now let's get to the really exciting part. How are these tools fundamentally changing the way we practice core language skills in the real world right now? One of the biggest shifts has been in where the learning actually happens. It started out super local, right, on a computer in the back of the classroom. Then tech started to build bridges between the classroom and the outside world. Think of things like email exchanges. But today, we're redefining the boundaries completely. With podcasts, collaborative wikis, global social media projects, learning just isn't tied to a physical place or a specific time anymore. And this has just supercharged our skills practice. I mean, reading isn't just a comprehension quiz anymore. It's a collaborative web quest where students are researching real-world problems using authentic sources. Writing is no longer just a lonely essay, it's a living document on a wiki, co-authored and peer-reviewed in real time. And communication? Well, it can be a genuine, spontaneous chat with a native speaker thousands of miles away. The potential for authentic practice here it's just massive. This all sounds amazing, I know. But how do we actually make it happen in our own classrooms with our own students and our own constraints? Well, that brings us to our final and maybe most important section, how to make smart, principled choices. So here's the absolute key takeaway. The fanciest tool in the world is totally useless without a thoughtful teaching approach behind it. It's not about finding the best app. It's about finding the right tool for your students, for your lesson in your classroom. The pedagogy always, always has to come before the product. And to put that principle into practice, here are 3 guiding questions you can always ask yourself. First, learning assumptions. Does this tool actually fit with how I believe learning happens? Second, learner needs. Does this thing actually solve a real problem for my students or create an opportunity that was impossible before? And finally, context. What's realistic for me? What tech do I have access to? What does my curriculum allow? Answering these questions honestly is the secret to a successful, stress-free integration. Which brings us right back around to our final thought. The whole journey we've just traced, from those simple drills to these complex digital worlds, it's all pushing toward that goal of normalization, of making the tech invisible. So I'll leave you with this to think about. When the technology finally does fade into the background, when it becomes as natural and as invisible as the air in the room, what new worlds of possibility, creativity, and connection will open up for your learners?